I think we get started.
Let's go.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Brenda and my name is Claire Davis. We'll be giving an overview of organic certification today, just kind of broad strokes, what organic certification looks like, the process, the regulations. My name is Claire, like I said. I work at Oregon Tilth, the organic certifier based out of Corvallis, Oregon, but primarily I represent the Northwest Transition to Organic Partnership Program, TOPP, or TOP, as we commonly call it. And that provides free technical assistance and a farmer-to-farmer mentorship program to kind of assist any producers who are seeking organic certification. I have farming experience myself. For the 4 years before I took on this role, I did a lot of diversified veggies and cut flowers in the high desert outside of Reno, Nevada. Brenda.
And my name is Brenda Book. I'm the program manager for WSDA's organic program. So we are the only organic certifier based here in Washington State. We've been doing this for 40 years now. 2025 is our 40th year celebrating organic in Washington State. I've been with the program for 23 years now, and so always excited to talk about certification and the process. Like Claire said, we're going to focus more on the process for certification, but we're also happy to answer any production standard questions, those sorts of things. Before we get started, just so I don't forget, I want to highlight that all day tomorrow, my team is hosting what we're calling office hours, which is an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper from this session. Folks can sit down, and you don't have to be a farmer to sit down with us. Resource providers, if you're interested as well, you can come sit down with a member of my team. We can walk you through all the different resources that do exist. We'll all have our computers. We'll show you all the resources on TOP's website. We'll show you what we have at WSDA. We even have hard copies of organic system plans where we can walk through that with anybody that's interested. So yeah, keep that in mind that this is just your little teaser, and there's more resources and opportunity to have these conversations.
Right on. All right, let's jump in. So today we're going to cover why folks are interested in getting certified organic in the first place, organic certification, key organic principles, what it means to farm organically according to the National Organic Program, who's who in the organic certification world, so you understand the entities and how they interact with each other. We'll talk about eligibility, how you know if you can apply immediately for organic certification or if you have to go through that 3-year transition program or transition process. We'll talk about that more. We will talk about how to prep for certification. Of course, we'll tell you about process and the fees involved. I'll talk about other resources for certification. I'll talk about TOP more at this time. And then we will be sure that we keep enough time for a Q&A at the end. So let's jump on in.
And I want to say, if there's something you have questioned in the midst of the conversation, please raise your hand. Like, we don't want to save all the questions to the end. I'm happy to have that dialogue and make sure we're all clear. Yeah?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, let's dive in. So why do people get certified organic? So in order to access the organic market, you have to be certified and have that USDA organic label. There is a really big demand in the US for organic goods. You can see in this sales data over time from 2007 to 2023, we went from less than $20 billion in domestic sales to almost 70 in 2023. And in 2024, I think we were at like $71.6 billion. So the US organic market has grown by an average of about 5% every year since the early 2000s. There was a 5.2% rate of growth in 2024, which means that the organic market is growing at 2 times the pace of the overall food market in the United States. But the US is still importing significantly more organic goods than we're exporting, which means there is some major domestic opportunity for growth. And that's partially what spurred the creation of the Transition to Organic program, is to bridge this gap with our own land and our own farmers. So what is so important about certification and the organic label? What doors does it open for producers? As we know, organically grown products are more expensive, and so organic producers can access organic markets and premiums that conventional producers cannot. The organic label represents a universal and regulated standard. The organic label signifies the same thing across the country, with enforcement policies in place for anyone who is not following the regulations or selling organic goods fraudulently. This levels the playing field for all producers and leads directly into point 3, which is that there is a strong consumer trust in organic certification. Consumers understand what the label and the claim mean, they know it is well regulated, and there is national trust in that. In addition to that, certification is a form of communication about your products when you're not there to represent them yourself. In many cases, the label does the talking for you about what practices you use to raise or grow your products. I want to share, it's important to mention that you cannot use the word organic in your marketing unless you are certified organic. You can use words like natural, chemical-free, sustainable, just not organic. And some folks see this as a little bit restrictive because it is intentionally so. The reason the organic label carries the universal recognition that it does is because the waters can't be muddied. So if a consumer wants to know what organic means anywhere in the country, they can read the clear standards that apply to every organic operation.
Yeah, and I just want to, we've had a lot of conversations the past couple of days about regenerative. There's great opportunities there for farmers as well. But that's what sets, at this point in time, organic kind of apart from that regenerative movement, is that it is defined. So it does allow farmers to communicate what their practice standards are when they're not there to explain themselves. And so, it is the only term that we've been talking about this last couple days that does have that regulation behind it and does have that set of standards behind it.
In Breaking New Ground, which was a 2017 survey created by partners Oregon Tilth and Oregon State University, they asked producers either why they were transitioning to organic or why they were already certified. And you can see in this circle here that the majority of the answers were values-based. So while there is significant market and profit potential for organics, most folks who have transitioned or are transitioning are doing so because it's in line with their values. So for many, the commitment goes even deeper then and is perhaps less influenced by the market. This trend also bodes well for continued organic growth, especially as younger generations like millennials and Gen Z demonstrate really notable interest in both sustainability and health in their food and household products. All right, moving on from markets and labels and all of that stuff, let's jump into the key principles of organic. And this also ties a lot into the regenerative conversations we've been having. So what does it mean to farm organically? The National Organic Program, or the NOP, as it is lovingly called, oversees all organic regulations and certification in the country. And the NOP defines organic production as, and forgive me, I am just going to read it because it's punchy, a production system that is managed in accordance with the regulations to respond to site-specific conditions by integrating cultural, biological, and mechanical practices that 1, foster the cycling of resources, 2, promote ecological balance, and 3, conserve biodiversity. So I think often organic is simply referred to as just a system of substitutions or a list of materials that you cannot use. But in actuality, it's far more than that. It's more wholly focused on what certain practices can do for your larger agricultural system and its surrounding environment. So organic is not just production with substitutions, and it's not just eliminating synthetic materials. It's more focused on this system-wide ecological approach to farming that maintains or improves what's already there, both in your soil and the larger surrounding environment.
It's an amazing definition. Really, I hope you all are absorbing what this definition is. It's unique in how it phrases things, how it looks at site-specific conditions, how it allows us to take these larger principles and apply them onto farms across the world, which is really, really amazing. And I also think it represents kind of that grassroots movement of where the organic standards came from. The organic standards came from farmers. It came from farmers wanting to have a system that met their values. And that's what we ended up with, which is really unique in federal regulation. So I'm really proud of this definition. I just like to really be that cheerleader for it of this is a holistic approach to agricultural systems, and that's what organic is.
Don't get emotional. All right, so some key organic principles. If you remember nothing else, remember the words maintain or improve. So for soil fertility and nutrient management, one of the most important parts of organic production is maintaining healthy soil and nutrients. So the organic standards state that organic farmers must maintain or improve the physical, chemical, and biological condition of the soil and minimize erosion. There are multiple ways to meet these requirements, since we only have a couple farmers in the audience, in the interest of time, I'm gonna skip through them, but conservation tillage is a really good one. Using compost or composted animal manure is another really good one. Cover crops, crop rotation, etc. For seeds and planting stock, these must be certified organic unless they are not commercially available in the quantity or form that you need, in which case farmers can use untreated and non-GMO seeds instead. Note that annual seedlings, any transplants, must be 100% certified organic. For pest, weed, and disease management, this is another really important spot for organic production. Per the regulations, organic farmers must prioritize preventative practices first and foremost. So this can look like increasing habitat for beneficial insects, birds, bats, crop rotations to prevent diseases from staying in the soil, cleaning up after a field is cleared, intercropping or cover cropping to lessen weed pressure. And these are just some of the practices that can help prevent pests, weeds, and diseases. If preventative practices are not sufficient, then the use of mechanical or physical methods should be used. This can be mechanical weeding, hand weeding, mowing, livestock grazing. And then lastly, allowed natural materials and inputs can be applied to control pests and disease. But you always want to check with your certifier before applying something to your land that it is approved for use. So pest, weed, and disease management can require a really significant change in perspective when first going organic, particularly weed management. In organic systems, you don't have herbicides available to hit the weeds reset button, so weed pressure is managed by the system itself through crop rotation, cover crops, timing of cultivation is a really big one, and canopy competition. So it's about stacking practices that make weeds less aggressive year over year, rather than the total elimination of all weeds. After all, weeds are technically part of the ecological balance too. All right, lastly, biodiversity and conservation. So for organic production, farmers do need to implement production practices that maintain or improve the natural resources and biodiversity of that operation, including soil and water quality. So this includes minimizing erosion, monitoring your water quality and using efficient water irrigation techniques, maybe using wildlife safe fencing, and caring for any natural or riparian areas on your property. Luckily, there's a lot of overlap between these requirements. For example, reducing tillage on your farm can contribute to both the soil and fertility requirement as well as the biodiversity and conservation requirement.
And Claire did a really great job of listing out a bunch of different options there. And I think, again, I'm gonna be a cheerleader over here of the beauty of the organic regulation is it's not prescriptive. Again, we're looking at what makes sense for that farm, that site, that location. And there's a lot of different ways you can meet those requirements, which again allows that flexibility for farmers, allows that, again, adaptability to their specific site. I want to also give a plug of come to our office hours, or if you just stop down at our trade show booth downstairs, we have fact sheets on how you can meet these different requirements if you're here in Washington State. We're using the terminology, of the systems that we have here. We're identifying, what do tree fruit producers do in this situation? And so we have some even more customized, narrowed down resources for you on how do you get to these requirements, how do you meet these standards.
All right, there are a few different players in this big fun world of organic certification. So we're gonna break down the major entities so you can understand how they work together and interact. So at the tippy top, we have the USDA National Organic Program, the NOP. This is the regulatory program that oversees all organic ag and enforces the regulations alongside certifiers. The NOP is not the one reviewing your application. They do not do that. They just establish and enforce the organic regulations, and they accredit certifiers who certify operations as organic. So while certifiers audit and inspect farms, the NOP audits and inspects certifiers to make sure that they are enforcing the regulations appropriately. Moving on, certifiers are the entities that farmers and ranchers actually interact with on an annual basis for the certification process. So they're the ones that issue the certificate. They are the ones who send the inspector to the operation. Note that the inspector does not make a call on certification. They are just the impartial eyes and ears taking observation notes. Finally, and most importantly, are the certified organic operations. This includes farmers and ranchers, which are generally called producers, as well as processors and handlers. There are 4 different scopes that you can be certified under. There's crops, there's wild crops. This would be like gathering chanterelle mushrooms in the woods. There's livestock, and there's handling. So an operation can be certified for just one of these scopes, or they can be certified for multiple. For example, if you grow berries and you make jarred jam out of those berries, you would be certified for both crops and handling. Okay, here are some of the major organic certifiers that operate in the Northwest. So certification agencies are authorized to issue certificates to operations that comply with the regulations. They are also authorized to enforce the regulations and protect the integrity of the industry by denying, suspending, or revoking organic certification. So if you are considering getting certified, I really encourage you to take a look at the certifiers that operate in your region, get familiar with them, see how they work, and choose the best one for you and your operation. I work at Oregon Tilth. It's a great spot. Brenda represents WSDA's organic program. Is there anything else that you want to say on this slide?
Yeah, just that there are, if we look at Washington State specifically, we have 17 different certifiers that work in this state that are offering services. Maybe to just a few, but there's a wide variety of operations or certifiers that operations could choose from, and we do want you to pick the one that's right for you. WSDA certifies about 87% of the operations here in our state because we are focused on our state. We have staff and resources specific to our state, and so that's really helpful for some folks. But other folks may have, maybe more market-driven, and they're going to choose a certifier that is connected to maybe the rest of their supply chain. I'll also note, because we've got somebody from Idaho Department of Agriculture also provides organic certification as well.
And certain certifiers will certify for certain scopes. You just want to make sure that those certifiers are certifying for the scopes that you are interested in. So
a great example is WSDA does not currently offer livestock certification. So we have deferred that service over to our colleagues that are more focused in that area so that we can focus on, again, the major cropping systems we have here.
Right on. Okay, I think for timing purposes, I'm going to skip through the OID. Really handy database, the Organic Integrity Database. You can search for certifiers that operate in your region. You can search for other producers who are certified organic near you. You can search specifically by products. So if you want to find an organic producer near you that produces chickpeas, fantastic. You can type all that in and kind of build your network and get that knowledge share going.
And if you want help figuring out how to use that database, stop by our office hours tomorrow and our team will walk you through that.
It is free and open to the public. Okay, moving on through that. How do you know if you're eligible for organic certification? There are 2 major buckets that producers can fall into. So if a farmer has recently used a synthetic substance that is prohibited under the regulations, then a 3-year transition process must occur. That 3 years starts from the last application of that prohibited substance to the land, and the first certified organic crop can be harvested exactly 3 years after that. So for those 36 months leading up to certification, transitioning producers must only use materials that are approved for organic production. This includes all inputs, fertilizers, pest and disease controls, livestock treatments, and any other materials that you use on your operation. On the other hand, if you already practice organic and you're just not certified, meaning you don't apply any prohibited substances to your land and nothing prohibited has been applied in the last 3 years, then you may be eligible to receive certification right away, and you likely won't need to go through that transition process. Any livestock producers in the room? Cool, I'm gonna skip the livestock stuff then. Okay, while transitioning to organic and once certified, producers must only use materials and inputs that are allowed under the organic regulations. It is vital that you make sure that any input you use is allowed for organic, otherwise you could accidentally reset the 3-year transition clock. This sounds really, really scary, but it's actually very rare that a producer makes that kind of mistake. You need to widely apply a prohibited substance like to your entire farm to take the entire operation back to the start of that transition process. But here is why seeds are really important. If someone accidentally plants seeds that are treated with a prohibited substance, that does count as a widespread application. And the entire piece of land where those seeds were planted would have to be removed from certification. So this is why confirming that seeds are organic and untreated and non-GMO is really important.
WSDA has a really handy fact sheet on seeds and planting stock. GMOs are not widely available. Not every crop is produced in a GMO form. And so we give you some resources on, what are the crops that you need to pay attention to? What are those high-risk cropping systems that may be more at risk for GMO contamination?
So how can you determine what is allowed or prohibited for organic? How are you supposed to know that? There are lots of different ways that you can check in addition to asking your certifier, but the NOP National List of Allowed and Prohibited Substances is in the Code of Federal Regulations, and this lists generic, broad strokes categories of substances that can or cannot be applied on an organic operation. OMRI stands for the Organic Materials Review Institute. They are a third-party reviewer of materials for organic use. They have a really handy searchable list on their website, and it's one of my favorite tools. They have a lot of detail on materials. And you guys have probably seen the OMRI approved sticker on some products. That's another way of verifying that that is allowed for organic production. And finally, some certifiers also publish approved materials lists, such as the Washington State Department of Ag.
We are the only certifier that is recognized by NOP for this service that we provide. We are very similar to OMRI. OMRI has a little bit more of a nationwide reach, but our materials list was started, it originated as a service to Pacific Northwest producers. So a lot of our input materials, the formulated brand name products that we review and list on that on our public website, searchable, where you can find that information, are more focused on cropping systems that we see here in the Northwest.
You always want to check with your certifier before applying something to your land that you're not sure about. In this industry, it is much better to ask for permission first rather than apologize later.
And you don't have to have already applied with a certifier to ask those kind of questions.
Totally true.
Those are questions that we appreciate. We want to get ahead of time. We want to help you work through that process. Resource providers, please direct people to us for those types of questions, even if they're not going to get certified, but they want to pick materials that are compliant with the regulation.
Okay, the organic regulations are indeed the backbone of organic certification. They ensure that organically labeled products are produced with specific practices that are backed by a rigorous certification process. So anyone in the country buying something labeled organic knows exactly the regulations that operation followed and adhered to. The standards are found in the Code of Federal Regulations at Title VII, Part 205, so you can view them all online. I do recommend taking a look at these if you are considering getting certified. Before I got this job and I was a farmer, I assumed it would be a 200-page legalese PDF. That was just a waste of time. These are actually really easy to navigate and parse out which regulations apply to your operation and which ones don't. And if you are reading these regulations and have a question, that's my job in Northwest Top to assist you. So if you want to set up a one-on-one session with me, we can have a fun little regulations book club session together. Okay, let's take a look at how to prepare to apply for certification. So you want to review the regulations. Just like I said, you want to make sure they seem feasible and applicable to your operation. You want to confirm your eligibility and your target date for certification. When do you want to be certified by? Is it before the start of next season? Great, you want to know that. Confirm that your 3-year transition, if you had one, is over by then, and then start your application process at least 4 to 6 months before that target date for certification. Develop your record-keeping system if you don't already have one. It's a really good idea to have an established record-keeping system in place that you're used to so it doesn't feel like a huge burden once you're certified. Develop it early, make it routine for you and your team. For crops, you want to record seeds and starts, planting info, material applications, harvest info, and sales info. And we'll dive more into that in a bit here. And finally, like we said, research your certifiers, call them. Certifiers have different processes, timelines, and fee schedules. Some certifiers only certify for certain scopes and not all 4 of them. So you just really want to do your research and check in with those certifiers to make sure that they fit your needs. Okay, now you're ready to apply. What does the actual process of certification look like? So you've selected a certifier, you submit their organic system plan, their OSP, and you pay their fees. So the OSP, the organic system plan, is like an agreement between you and your certifier. You, the producer, state what your plan is to manage your operation in accordance with the regulations, and you both sign it. It's an agreement between the two of you. You pay your fees, and then once the forms are submitted and the fees are paid, the certifier will conduct an initial review of your OSP and ensure that all the needed information is there. Next comes the inspection. Spooky, scary. Every operation applying for certification is required to have an in-person inspection after passing that initial review. So the inspector will use your own organic system plan to guide the questions that they may have. They'll want to see every field that you're certifying and every area of your operation that you're certifying, like your wash and pack, your storage areas. They'll ask about the seeds that you use, and they'll want to see documentation that you used organic and untreated seeds, or review your commercial availability searches for any non-organic seed used. And they'll do a couple audit exercises to put your record-keeping system to the test, and we'll talk more about that too. Finally, after the inspection, the certifier reviews the OSP and the inspection report to evaluate compliance with the regulations. Recall, the inspector does not make a decision. They are the impartial eyes and ears. They take down a report and submit that to the certifier for review. And if in compliance, the certifier will issue your organic certificate. Congratulations. And finally, there's an annual inspection and review. So every year after that you wish to remain certified organic, you'll need to go through an annual inspection. You'll need to pay certification and inspection fees annually, and you need to make sure that you keep your organic system plan up to date and notify your certifier of any changes. And so changes could be, I'm growing new crops, or I'm dropping certain crops from my certification, or I'm adding or removing acreage, for example.
And I'll say, in between all of these steps, there are opportunities for dialogue and conversation. We do not expect a farmer to get it right the first time. We want you to submit your plan. That's the beauty of it. It's called a plan. And so plans can change. And so you submit your plan. This is what I think I'm going to do. We give you feedback. We will review that plan. We'll ask you additional questions. We'll point out where we might need more information, or we're just a little not sure what it is that you're trying to do. But there's that dialogue, and that dialogue may be in written communication. A reviewer may just call you up on the phone and just talk through that issue with you. And then at the inspection, there's also opportunity for changes in your plan, for adjustments, for the inspector identifies something that is an issue, and you have an opportunity to change and correct that, go in a different direction. We give you options for how to go about that. And so just be really, I want to be really clear that we're always talking about continuous improvement. You never have to, we're not grading this. It's not a pass-fail. We want to work with you to get you to that place of certification.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Certifiers kind of thread an interesting gap of being both supervisory as well as consultative. And so they really play both of those roles, and you're paying them. They're working for you. Make sure you utilize that. Okay, fees, of course, very big question that comes up about certification. So all certifiers are allowed to determine their own fee schedule, but they must be publicly posted for anyone to view. So fees do vary between certifiers. Some certifiers base their fees on a sliding scale of your farm's income. Sometimes there's just a flat fee, sometimes there's a new applicant fee, and sometimes there's not. So it's really dependent on the individual certifier, and again, do your research. In general, though, regardless of the certifier, there will be two separate fees. There will be one fee for the administrative certification process, like reviewing your OSP and kind of administering that certificate, and there will be a separate fee for the in-person inspection. Inspections are not always, but typically charged hourly, so it's really good to be prepared ahead of time so your inspection doesn't take too long. Inspection costs are also based on how far an inspector needs to travel to get to you, so it's helpful to find a certifier that already operates in your region. They often will batch inspections so that cost is distributed amongst those producers.
And we're unique in Washington. We don't charge you an inspection fee based on hours, based on travel. We have a flat fee that just allows us to recoup those costs for a producer. That is $500 for just the inspection side of it. And then for a new application, that's $500. So a new farm coming into WSDA can get certified for $1,000 in their first year. That's also benefit that we have of having inspectors right here in the state, in your regions. And so we don't have to worry about that travel assessment.
For Oregon Tilth, there's a one-time new applicant fee of $300. The base crop certification fee is $325 in your very first year. And then that inspection fee is charged just totally dependent on the amount of time that it takes. So it's you should know ahead of time how much that's going to cost you. And in the following years, you would not pay the new applicant fee beyond that. There is an organic certification cost share program, which can refund up to 75% or up to $750 of the certification cost for every scope that your farm gets certified under. Certification cost share was reauthorized by Congress back in July, but the funds themselves have not yet been released. Been a little busy over there. So you can check with your local FSA office for more information kind of as the government comes back online.
But in Washington, it's us that oversees that cost share. So you can work with WSDA directly. We're kind of one stop shop for anybody that's certified with us. We just automatically issue that cost share when those funds are available. But if you're in Washington State and you're certified by Oregon Tilth, you can still work with us for that cost share piece of it. But we have a little bit slightly different agreement where FSA offices aren't really active with cost share here in Washington. They've defaulted to us. We've been administering that program since 2004.
Never mind. Thank you, Brenda. All right, how are we doing on time? Pretty good, actually. Okay, after you choose a certifier, you will develop what's called your organic system plan. We talked about this a little bit, but the OSP is essentially your entire application for organic certification and an agreement between you and your certifier for how you'll manage your operation. It tells your certifier all about your operation, including what crops you grow or livestock you produce, your fields and acreage, any materials that you use, conservation and biodiversity plans, and your record keeping system. And don't you worry, we are going to talk more about record keeping. Know that each certifier's OSP forms are a little bit different. They all essentially ask the same questions, but they might ask them in a slightly different format or a different order. And so you can't fill out one certifier's forms and submit that to another certifier. So to save yourself some work, again, just do that research ahead of time.
And the OSP is I think every certifier, we consistently do this. We build into that OSP tips and notes about what regulation we're talking about when we're asking that question. Why are we asking that? So you can go back to the regulation and see those full details. But even if you didn't do that step, which Claire was wisely telling y'all to do, of read the regulation, if you jump right to the organic system plan, you will still get that information on what those requirements are. We're going to walk you through that process.
You're not flying blind.
No.
Okay. Finally, let's talk about record keeping, one of my favorite topics. Why is record keeping so important in organic agriculture? So when we talk about the significance and the meaning that the organic seal carries, remember we discussed that level playing field, the rigorous certification process, the set standards. At the heart of all of that is consumer trust. So if consumers were to lose confidence in the organic seal, the industry would not fare very well. So how does the National Organic Program maintain consumer trust at such a large scale? How do we ensure that there isn't rampant fraud with bad actors marketing non-organic goods as organic? Record keeping is part of that answer. Certifiers only have actual eyes on your operation one day out of the year at your annual inspection. Record keeping, or the diligent tracking of operation details, gives certifiers insight into how your farm is run the rest of the time. So there are two main goals to traceability and the resulting transparency that record keeping brings. One, ensure no contamination of organic goods occurred. And two, ensure there is no fraudulent activity, whether intentional or accidental, is occurring. The audit trail exercises, are performed at each inspection, and they look more closely at your record-keeping system and the prevention of contamination and fraud. So there are two main types of audits that are performed at every inspection. We have the traceback and we have the mass balance. So the traceback is where the inspector will choose a random product that you sell, let's say organic bunched dino kale, and you will both trace it together from sale or whenever it left your operation back to the seed or transplant, or whenever it entered your operation. So for the dino kale, working backwards, you'll look at the sales invoices, who bought it, how much did they buy, then the harvest, cleaning, and storage records, any inputs that you use on those plants or the soil, then the planting and any tending that was done, and finally all the way back to the dino kale seeds or transplants that you originally purchased. The goal of the traceback is to ensure that organic regulations were met throughout the entire crop or animal's life cycle on your operation, namely that no contamination occurred. For the mass balance, the second one, the goal is to ensure that no fraud, whether intentional or accidental, has occurred. So the term mass balance is just a really fancy way of saying, do the outputs match the inputs of your farm? So for dino kale, continuing with our example, let's say your records indicate that you harvested and sold 2,000 bunches of organic dino kale this past season. You are a kale whisperer. But your records show that you only planted 20 dino kale plants. For the sake of clarity, this is a very, very exaggerated example, but that would mean that you harvested 100 bunches of kale per plant, and that just isn't feasible. So the question becomes, where did all that extra dino kale come from? The mass balance is done to ensure there is no fraud in our organic system or folks passing off non-organic goods as organic. Anything you'd like to add? Okay. I think we skipped this. Yeah. Cool. We're happy, both of us, both Northwest Top and WSDI, are super happy to answer super detailed questions about what records are specifically needed, and there's a ton of resources online on this as well. Okay, so you might be thinking, there's a lot of details to keep track of. The good news is, while the National Organic Program does require you to keep these records, they do not require any specific format for these records to be kept in. If you want to keep spreadsheets, great. If you want to write on a calendar that's stuck to your barn wall, also works. Whatever works for you. So producers keep records in whatever way works best for them and their operation, whether digitally, paper, notebook, calendar, you name it. I do recommend organizing by categories like planting, sales, inputs. This makes inspections easier because, as we talked about in the traceback, they'll want to see kind of those discrete records across the product's lifespan. Record routinely, daily, if possible. If you do fall behind on your record keeping, it can be super overwhelming to catch up or remember what happened on the farm 2 months ago, let alone for me 2 days ago, honestly. And finally, the NOP requires that you keep records on hand for 5 years. So don't go throwing them away the moment your inspection is over. Just keep them in a safe and accessible place.
Yeah, WSD on our webpage, we have templates that USDA put together, and we kind of reshare them there. But there's also a lot of other templates and resources that we can point folks to.
Any questions?
Oh, thank you.
Do you want to repeat the question into the microphone?
The question was are there any templates that are provided for record keeping? And the answer is yes.
A resounding yes.
But again, I'll just say we're not prescriptive. Like Claire was saying, it's the templates therefore are like really simple just to give somebody an idea, but they can be as detailed as you need them to be, because a farmer is going to keep records if it also works for their business and it's not just for the organic inspector. So we want record keeping systems that are going to help you be a better farmer as well as meet those requirements for organic certification.
There's a really handy thing to remember when creating your record keeping system and sticking to it. It's face your record keeping fears. So F, is it fast? You do not want your record keeping to interrupt your work because nobody's going to drop the wheelbarrow to go walk into the office to enter some information into a computer. I've tried that. It didn't work. On a farm that I worked on, we kept the amendments binder on the amendments cart. And so the moment we added things to the soil, we marked it right then and there. A, is it accurate? Is all the required information there? So you can base your system, you can either use the templates or base your system off the templates that exist out there. Not just what you did, but when and where you did it. I really recommend using columns with headers to make sure that you capture all the needed information. C, is it consistent? You want to build this record keeping process and system into your daily activities. Make it part of your training plan, like the last one to store the salad mix in the fridge writes down the total number, something like that. And finally, E, easy. This one might be the most important. Can anybody keep this record? Especially when working with a team on your farm, you want to make everything as accessible as possible. You do not want just one person in charge of record keeping, or it will fall down around their ears once peak season hits. So, face your record keeping, fast, accurate, consistent, and easy. Thanks.
And also, just remember, you don't have to get it right the first time. That's what this process is for. A lot of folks, they need to go through those first inspection and those first audits so that they can really understand where they might need to make some tweaks. So again, continuous improvement. You don't have to get it right the first time.
There's grace and flexibility in this process.
Except if you apply prohibited material. That is the one thing that will knock you out. And so again, going back to what Claire was emphasizing, how important that is to understand what has been applied, because we don't have there's no wiggle room. There's no continuous improvement there. every other part of the regulation, there are opportunities to correct, to adjust.
Cool. Okay, keeping an eye on the clock. We're in the home stretch. I think we'll wrap up our presentation in about 5 minutes and jump into Q&A. So let's talk about resources just a little bit. Brenda and I both talked about a lot of resources so far. WSDA has some great ones. Northwest Top has some really good ones too. There's a lot of them out there to assist with transitioning to organic, implementing organic production practices on your farm. Organic pest management is a really big one, and then understanding organic markets and finding your own niche as well. So here on the screen are just a few of the common resources that are used nationwide. If you're looking for more specific resources, feel free to reach out to me at the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. I'm really familiar with kind of all the national resources that are out there, and I can point you to one that would be really helpful for specific questions. Okay, and let's dig into TOP just a little bit more. So what is the Transition to Organic Partnership Program? Category is, how do we support growers who are looking to get certified organic? So the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, or TOP as we call it, is a national initiative that supports crop and livestock producers through the organic certification process, lowering that barrier to entry and making it feel less daunting. A national program is split into 6 regions. Oregon Tilth is in charge of kind of the Northwest region. We work with a lot of different partners across 6 states. And then all services offered to producers by TOP are free and completely certifier neutral. So if a producer in Montana wants to work with a Montana certifier, but they have some questions, great. You can reach out to us and we would be more than happy to help, completely free of charge. One of the primary services that TOP offers is a really, really cool farmer-to-farmer mentorship program. So growers who are looking to become certified are paired with an experienced, already certified farmer in their region who has a similar operation to kind of provide that farmer-to-farmer knowledge share. Mentees participate in this program for free, and the mentors are really generously compensated for their time and support of those mentees. So TOP provides guidance and structure for these relationships, but at the end of the day, it's up to the mentee and the mentor to decide what works best for them. Mentors are available across the Northwest and the rest of the country, and we're always super happy to have more mentees and mentors join our program. So you can find the application to join the program on the TOP website, which is organictransition.org, or you can reach out to me and I'll connect you with the right folks to get you either a mentor or a mentee. In addition to mentorship, TOP also offers one-on-one technical assistance to growers looking to get certified. That's what I do. Again, we're super happy to work with growers no matter what certification agency you choose to go with. Certification specialists like myself can help you with understanding organic regulations, putting it in layperson language, help you fill out your organic system plan, prepare for your inspection, develop your record-keeping system, you name it. If you have a question, we will help you get it answered. One-on-one certification assistance is offered virtually, over the phone, over email, or in a Teams meeting. We did it. Take a breath, everybody. Thank you so much for your attention. It's been really, really great for both of us to share about organic certification with you. If you are interested in learning more about certification or the TOP program, please don't hesitate to get in touch. All of my information is on the slide right now. There's also a QR code which leads directly to our TOP interest form. You can fill that out, and I personally will reach out to you following this conference. So, okay, Brenda and I are really happy to take any questions you have.
And there's a TOP table downstairs too.
There is.
Along with WSDA's table. So yeah, you have more opportunities to stop by.
Oh, and we have some really helpful flyers up front as well as an interest form. And if you put your information down there, I will also personally reach out to you within the week. So, okay, thanks, folks.
It is.
It's question time.
I was curious,
We're not hooked up to the speaker.
We had to, the speaker broke.
Do you have to certify your entire operation? Or say you have some fields that you have contract with someone else to do conventionally, maybe you'll do that sometime in the future. Can you certify part of it, or do you have to certify the whole operation?
I'm going to repeat the question into the microphone.
Okay.
The question was, can you certify just part of your operation, or do you have to certify the entire thing? The answer is you can definitely have what's called a split operation, where part of it is certified organic and another part of it kind of uses standard conventional methods. You just want to make sure you have a really secure record-keeping system to make sure that those products aren't accidentally commingling.
And it's a great way to start. Start small. Test out that this is going to work for you, that this is something that you can manage, that you can keep those records, go through the inspection process with just one field the first year. Don't take it all on. I think that's a concern a lot of farmers have. I can't add one more thing to my plate. But if you're already producing organically on one field, you have records that there's no prohibited material, try it with that and see how that works. Majority of the farms that we work with here in Washington State are split operations, but most of them are kind of moving towards organic. They start small and then, oh, that worked. I'm going to add this field now next year, and add this field the year after. And so that is an option. You do not have to come in all farm all at once.
You mentioned earlier that there's a searchable database for the prohibited materials. Is that true or incorrect?
The question is a searchable database for organic materials. Would you like to take that one?
Yeah, there's a couple different options. And so both OMRI, OMRI, as well as WSDA, we both publish list of formulated brand name products. It's not an all-inclusive list because it's just those companies that choose to get registered and that want to market to organic producers and want their name on that list. So yeah, we both have resources there. We've got a lovely little fact sheet downstairs on our table that's about crop input materials, and there's a little dichotomous key on the back to kind of walk you through that process. But also, again, we are a state agency. We are there as a resource. Even if you can't find what you're looking for, you can contact us and we can help you with that.
Really quick, sorry, I just want to
Yeah.
add to that. If you can't seem to find whether a material is allowed or not, and it's maybe something that hasn't been reviewed before, you can also ask certifiers to perform a material review for you. And so that's another way to get the answers that you need.
Yeah, we have a lot of operations where they're using inputs that are not registered, and that's part of that normal process that we go through when you apply for certification. The registration just allows you to kind of skip right to it. We've already determined that compliance, and so you can use those products knowing you're not going to jeopardize your certification. We also, WSDA, we offer transitional certification, which is unique. This is still under our state law versus the federal system. And what that does is it allows an operation to go through that transition with us so we can give that kind of ongoing feedback through those 3 years. It's not required. As Claire said, you can enter right into certification, but it's another option if it feels better to have that one-on-one support through the process. Lynn.
How concerned should an organic producer be about drift from neighbor operations? Is there routine testing for pesticide residues, and what are the acceptable measures to?
Great question.
How concerned should organic farmers be about drift from conventional operations in terms of potentially losing your certification if synthetic residues are found on your crops?
Yeah. Buffers and borders are a real thing. It's a huge part of that evaluation that we look at of how are you protecting your organic site from the adjoining land. So it is important, and part of the application process, you're going to disclose what's happening on that adjoining land. Our inspectors are going to then come out and look at what's happening here. And when you're first filling out your system plan, you're proposing a buffer. And the organic farmers are taking that on themselves. You can't require your neighbor to produce organically because you are. And so this is where organic farmers, you don't live in a bubble. And so there is contamination, there are risks. And so we're looking at how, as a farmer, are you mitigating those risks? And what kind of buffer management plan are you putting in place? And is it appropriate for what's happening on that adjoining land? What kind of crop is growing on that adjoining land? How is that neighbor applying materials? Do you have enough of a border to account for that? But again, it's a plan. And so you start out, well, this is what I think I can do. This is what I think will protect my site. And then we come out, we conduct an inspection, we make our own observations. Inspectors do use pesticide residue testing as a tool. And so if we have concerns like, that border looks, or that buffer looks really small compared to what we see happening, let's do a residue test to see if that border is sufficient or not. We'll look at those test results, and if they come back positive, we'll work with the farmer to adjust their buffer management plan so that they can prevent that residue. Or maybe they find like, hey, I have plenty, a nice big buffer, and maybe you can move it in more than you thought, and our inspectors will work with you on that as well. But we are also then taking into account, like, so if we do find residues, the regulation outlines when a crop can be sold with an organic claim if residues are detected. And so there is a threshold where certain residue levels are allowed, where that crop can still be marketed with an organic claim, but the farmer has to be taking steps to prevent that issue from happening in the future. But there's, again, that's kind of falls in line with, you don't have to get it right the first time. We can kind of adjust here. But if those residues are above 5% of the EPA tolerance for that particular chemical, then it can't be sold as organic. And so there is a risk for the producer of, like, if you don't have a big enough buffer and you're harvesting something right up to the edge, you may risk losing that whole crop because you harvested it, it's all mixed, we can't isolate it. If we can isolate it, we will. But so there's a lot of different options there. And again, just thinking proactively, what's happening on the land around my organic site, and what do I need to do to protect it so that I can stay in control of it, because I'm not in control of the adjoining land. There's also a difference between drift and a direct application, and we take that into consideration as we evaluate those residues and we evaluate the concerns with the buffers. So there's a couple different factors there involved. But again, we work with you, and it's a continuous improvement process.
There are some handy tools that some farmers use in their transition or when they're thinking about getting certified to assess drift, like spray cards, if you've heard of those before. They kind of change color when splattered with a liquid, or in this case, a drift of spray. So you can hang those maybe 5 feet from your neighbor, 10 feet from your neighbor, 20 feet from your neighbor, and see how far that drift may go, especially on a windy day. The buffer can look a lot of different ways. It can be fallow. It can be, you can use it as part of your organic plan and biodiversity to plant a hedgerow or pollinator-friendly flowers. Some producers, what they do is they do grow crops all the way up to the very edge of their land, but let's say the first 20 feet of that crop are considered a buffer crop or sacrificial. It is sold only as conventional and not as organic. And so if you're growing corn, corn is really good at intercepting drift. You can actually keep that 20 feet of corn between you and your neighbor, harvest it, sell it as conventional, and still make some profit while protecting the inside crops.
We have a nice fact sheet on buffers and kind of how to mitigate that risk downstairs at our table.
I was wondering if you're doing, say, value-added products from your organic certified produce. I mean, does that fall under the umbrella that's organic?
If you want to make an organic claim on it. So yeah, the question was about value-added products, and does that fall under that scope of certification as well? And so it all depends. If you want to make an organic claim, if you want to carry that claim all the way through to that value-added product, yes, it requires certification. But we have some folks that maybe they're going to just limit their organic claims to the ingredient statement of that product. That does not require certification. So we're going to look at the labeling claims and what's your end goal, and then we can work with you on what you need to meet that goal.
And also for livestock, say, the land is certified, any livestock that you raise on that land would be organic certified?
It's would any livestock that you raise on certified organic land be considered certified themselves? There are additional rules for livestock certification. So there's the crop scope. You would get that for your pasture and your land, and then you would also have to get certified under the livestock scope. And that has additional rules about the origin of those livestock. For example, mammals have to be managed organically from the final third of gestation. So their mother has to be eating 100% organic feed through birth, and then that animal is managed organically from then on. For poultry, avian species, these are managed organically from the second day of life. A lot of folks source chicks from a conventional hatchery, get the vaccines they need, and then from then on, they are managed organically. And dairies are allowed a one-time, 1-year transition of their herd from conventional to organic management for that milk product.
But it's all going to come down to, do you want to market those livestock products as organic?
Right.
If you don't want to, they can still graze on organic, certified organic land, and they don't have to be certified themselves. But if you want to make an organic claim on that livestock product, then yeah, you'd have to have that scope of certification.
And if you want final meat products to be certified organic as well, the slaughtering facility must be certified organic as well. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Organic is one of the only food systems that we have where you can trace it all the way back from the seed to the consumer. And every point, every entity that's involved in organic production, handling, even if that entity is only involved in facilitating trade, they're a broker. They never physically handle the product. Under the organic regulations, a change that was made a couple of years ago, that supply chain was tightened. So there are very few exemptions in the supply chain. So if you want the final product to have an organic claim, we have to backtrack all the way to make sure there's certification in place on all those steps. But you might not choose to have that livestock certified. That doesn't mean that that's going to impact your crop certification.
I guess my question is, how many organic certified slaughterhouses are there?
That's one of the biggest challenges. There are several different. How many certified livestock slaughter facilities are there? And there's a couple different areas in our industry where that supply chain, we don't have a lot of options, and so there's a need for that. And that's, again, where kind of TOP can come into play, where we can have those conversations. But yeah, if you're interested in getting certified, that's exactly right. You got to find then a slaughter facility that's also willing to get certified along, at the same time you are, or that they already have that certification. Kathy.
I guess I have two questions, but the first, they're not even really related, but the first one is, what are the major stumbling blocks that people have in putting together their plan for review? And so that's the first question. And the second question is, what sorts of things are in the plan for, say there was a value added, making jelly from the organic cherries and you wanted to sell it as organic jelly or jam or whatever. What are some of the, I'm not familiar with the processing side of this. I'm just curious what some of the key parts of the plan there is.
Sure. So first question is about stumbling blocks.
Stumbling blocks when filling out the organic system plan.
And I think that, so if you come and sit down with us, we'll pull out the organic system plan. Or if you go online and you see these are hefty documents, and that can be intimidating right there. And that's why we are here up front to tell you, it does not have to be scary. But I think that is one of our biggest stumbling blocks of just people not being clear on what that process is and being a little bit overwhelmed by it. But that's why we want to really promote that this is a plan. You don't have to get it right the first time. We also have all of us certifiers for efficiency, because we don't know what types of businesses are going to apply, what you're doing. So we have one crop organic system plan that asks questions about all sorts of different systems. And there's a lot of areas, and this is true of all certifiers, where you're just skipping through. This section does not pertain to what I'm doing. Not applicable. Keep going. And so, yeah, it does look hefty, but remember, it's a one-size-fits-all, and we don't know what size you are until you start filling that out. And so I think that right there can be a little bit intimidating. And then, I think Claire was highlighting, record keeping can be daunting because a lot of folks are not maintaining records in the way that you need to for certification. And so it's an adjustment. It's a cultural shift. It's working with your staff to learn new habits. And so I think record keeping for anybody, just this paperwork always feels like a stumbling block. And with that paperwork that's what we use to conduct the audits. And I think that word right there can be intimidating to folks of you're going to come audit, feels like a pass-fail. Again, That's just a term that we use of the process that we're going through, but it's a much more dynamic process than that. So that we could myth busting, that record keeping, that paperwork side of thing, I think is automatically looked at as a big stumbling block, when in reality, it doesn't have to be.
A lot of folks jump into filling out a certifier's organic system plan, sometimes without talking to that certifier, and that certifier can offer a lot of really helpful insight about the level of detail they're looking for. Oregon Tilth has walkthrough videos of our exact OSP for handling livestock and crops, and so just check out what resources are available to you when starting your OSP to make that process as seamless as possible. And I think it's really important to say that the folks who work at certifying agencies, a lot of them are farmers. A lot of them really care about this industry, and a lot of them are super nerdy and excited to geek out with you about your operations. So use the language of the trade in your OSP. Feel free to reach out to them. They really are going to be stoked to talk to you. So don't feel like there's just a faceless entity stamping yes or no on your application. That's really not the case.
There's the faces right there.
Aww.
And I think, a highlight for our team, Claire's exactly right. Our team loves to talk to farmers, especially our reviewers who are not going out there in the field like the inspectors are on a daily basis. And the reason they got into this business, the reason we all got into this business, because we love organic farmers. And so, reach out to us anytime with any questions, and exactly what Claire said, before you get started. And we can help kind of calm those nerves and give those pointers. Then the second question was kind of what are some of the requirements around handling and processing? And so TOP is really focused on the producer side of it, so that's kind of where we're coming from today.
Which is crops and livestock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And but yes, handling and processing, whole other set of standards in the regulation. The main thing that we are looking at, like if I could give you one kind of take-home message for handling and processing, it's how are you preventing contamination and commingling? And at every step along the way of handling that crop becoming that jar of jam, how are you ensuring that there's no prohibited materials that come in contact with that crop, those ingredients? How are you ensuring there's no commingling of ingredients that are not certified or that are not allowed in that processed product? And so if you have this is my non-organic jam and this is my organic jam, you have to have more sophisticated systems. If you're only doing all organic, it can be an easier system. But contamination and commingling prevention is kind of the big thing to keep in mind at every step along the way. And then labeling and product composition. And because there's different requirements depending on what claims you do want to make. And then there's certain requirements for product composition that are going to be based on the type of product that you're using. So, if you're making jam, you may be using pectin. And so there are certain requirements on that pectin to comply for that certification. So, again, a lot of resources online. Looking through our organic handling system plan will give you those kind of tips and on what the requirements are, what types of questions are important to consider. We're not going to ask a question in organic system plan unless it's important to the evaluation. So if we're asking the question, then it's a place to pause and say, okay, how am I doing that? But yeah, we don't fill the system plan up with questions that are not that are irrelevant. So just key into that, and I think it'll help you understand what it is that you need to do in your system, or you just call us. We do have a video series. Claire just mentioned Oregon Tilth's video series, and I'll do a plug for ours as well. We have a handful of 5 to 7 minute videos on organic certification. One is on record keeping, one is on contamination and commingling in a handling and processing facility. We have one on the certification process. And so there, depending on what works best for you, if you're a reader, you're a visual person, you can find all of those different resources, or just pick up the phone and give us a call and we'll direct you.
Right on. Okay, I think we're a couple minutes over, so we're going to end Q&A there. Brenda and I will be up here to answer any more questions that folks have. We have an interest sheet for Northwest Top. If you'd like me to reach out to you personally and answer more questions about organic, you're welcome to come put your information up here, and we will stick around for any more questions. Thanks, everyone.